Okay, welcome to the last session of this year's conference, and we want to kick off by welcoming Jamie Woodruff to the conference. Jamie is the director of Metrics Cloud and is a leading expert in ethical hacking and cybersecurity. He successfully hacked Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Google, and I'm sure it was all ethical, of course. And today, Jamie will be talking to us about social engineering. So I'd just like to welcome Jamie to the conference.
Good morning. How are we? Hopefully it's going to be a fun, interesting demonstration. Some of you I've seen before, but I'm going to use a lot of volunteers throughout my presentation, so feel free to not put your hands up and I'll choose you at will. But today we're going to be, so a lot of the media now around the world are quoting me as the puppet master, so I thought it's kind of ironic and I'll put it in my display. So we're going to be talking about how I pull the strings inside of your organization. So to start things off, I'm going to talk about the evolution of hacking. So I started hacking when I was 9 years old. I've disclosed around about 160,000 vulnerabilities in world-leading platforms since I was 9, right? Now, back then, we was like the Bankses of the cyber world. So all we'd do is break into your infrastructure and we just leave our digital graffiti and move on to the next part. All legal and ethical, of course. And how it's evolved is, what we was doing back then is we'd leave a note for you guys. So for the websites that we'd hack or deface, we wouldn't look at the data, we wouldn't steal the data, we wouldn't extort any money at all or anything. We'd leave a message on there saying, look, this is how we did it and this is how you can patch it. We was nice back then. But now it's completely evolving to where we're seeing political groups that are starting up around the world. So this is, we're all familiar with Anonymous, yeah? Put your hands up. Good, interaction. So we're all familiar with Anonymous, right? And this one here is a political statement that was left by the Moroccan hackers. So they would go in and then part of their political agenda, they'd deface websites and they'd leave, a lot of information to try and persuade individuals that would visit that website to join their cause or join what they're fighting for. So it's gone from, one-man bands to where I was, growing up, I was hacking to these kind of groups forming. But nowadays, it's all about, organized business cybercrime. So you have office blocks around the world, okay? This is not make-believe, it exists. Now this office, these office blocks, they come in 9 till 5 or whatever hours they work, and they get paid a salary. They have KPIs, they have targets that they need to hit and meet. Now these guys, they hack rival companies and third-party organizations. They're unethical hackers that are getting paid an ethical wage, which is, unreal. And these guys will steal that data. And if you take one thing away from what I talked today, data is more valuable than currency. It takes 5 minutes to steal 300,000 accounts. That's it, just 5 minutes. I'll show you a demonstration later on. But 5 minutes for 300,000 accounts. So later on in the presentation, we're going to be talking about data laundering. So when they've stole that data, just like money laundering, they have to launder that data. So how did he do it? And another thing as well, the perception of a hacker is there's a lot of misdirection towards it. So everybody perceives, it's this individual. We've all seen like the Die Hard films, yeah? Warlock sat in his mum's basement, right? That's what we perceive it, but I was in my mum's attic. It's completely the opposite, yeah? And the perception of a hacker, it's the guy that sat there, with his mask on. It's the guy that sat there with his hoodie. That's what we perceive because that's what, social media tells us. That's what the media tells us. But it could be any person in this room, could be a hacker, Anybody, your colleagues, a disgruntled employee, someone in your organization that you probably are not aware of what they're actually doing. So we just need to understand that don't perceive it as being this little code monkey sat in a basement, with a mask on, because it's completely the opposite nowadays. So let's move on to ransomware. So you're all familiar with ransomware, yeah? Put your hands up. Oh, good interaction. Someone's been eating cookies. And discovered in 1989. Now, it was $189 that was sent, via a PO box to Panama, right? Which is ridiculous, yeah? Nowadays, we're paying with cryptocurrencies, when we've been compromised, and it's asking for Bitcoin. But, this doctor, and it was another doctor as well that created this ransomware variation, the first ever one, and it locked all his files up. So he demanded the $189, and then eventually he was arrested for it. But that brought on a new kind of, revelation and evolution of ransomware because, now we're seeing this variation. So this is one that's still pending around recently. And, what they do is they take a picture of you through your webcam. So while you're sat in your machine and you've been infected with ransomware, it takes a picture of your face through your webcam. It embeds it into this, this website that's been made to look legitimate, but obviously there's quite a few spelling mistakes. I'm dyslexic and I can still spot them out. You know, and then it takes a picture and then it demands. But the thing is, you know, it's evolved as ransomware as well, because now they provide you a live chat support. So when you've been compromised, you can go through to a call center or go through, you know, a chat support system that will teach you how to buy this virtual currency Bitcoin. But not only that, they provide you a free phone number to call. They don't give you discounts, where again, you can go through to a call center and speak to an individual who will then help you recover your files. So, you know, this is one that I've seen over the last 2 weeks. Now, this individual here, Jovan, he's in the military in the US. Now, he opened up his laptop, and for some reason it was saying, pay me 0.01 Bitcoins equivalent to $50 to this address, or you're not getting on your laptop again. Now, the beauty of this is how it's kind of evolved from the ransomware. You download an exe, you know, you get infected. Whereas now, how many people in here genuinely use a password for pretty much everything? I don't care if you don't put your hands up, it's fine. But a lot of us do, and we've had that password for a long period of time. Stuff like our iCloud account, if we have Apple devices. So what hackers are doing is running a brute force-based attack around some third-party services that still run using their APIs to log into your iCloud accounts. Now, while they're in your iCloud account, they don't want to, you know, start meddling in your emails or looking at your payments or anything like that. What they'll do is turn on stolen device. And then once that gets activated, you can reset a PIN to any PIN that you want and display a message for whatever you want. So they're compromising these devices, displaying this message, locking you out of your iPads, your laptops, your MacBooks, okay, iOS devices, and then demanding a payment via Bitcoin to get your, you know, code back to log yourself back in. So again, it's evolved from that PO box in Panama to what we're seeing now. It's so easily accessible. You know, how many people in here are on LinkedIn? Put your hands up. Okay, so they got hacked, you know, a few years ago, right? So there was 50 million accounts that got compromised through LinkedIn. The passwords got hacked as well. Now, how many would use that password for multiple different things? I hope you guys have changed it. But again, you know, it gives us an insight to who you are. So this is my passion, okay, social engineering. So it's my job to break into your company by any means necessary without causing physical damage or distress. Now, obviously legal and ethical, I have to have consent. I can't just turn up and break in. Now, it's the art of manipulation for information. It's a cyber attack that relies on minimal technological interventions. So it's normally me, myself, and I. You know, I very rarely need technology while I'm doing this. And it's known as, you know, bugs in the human hardware, and it's based on our decision-making known as the cognitive biases. So the best way to describe it, you know, how many people go to Waitrose or Tesco's? Everybody pretty much does, right? You know, some more to Waitrose than others, but it's fine. You're high up in management. I'll talk to you later. And you know, when we get to the checkout, just perceive, right? So just imagine this lady's on the till and you've got no carrier bags left, okay? So this lady turns around and says, oh, they never have any carrier bags. Well, she pretty much hates her job. She's having a bad day. You know, she's there maybe just to pay the bills from 9 till 5. She's probably likely to screw up and be exploited. But someone that says, oh, sorry, we never have any carrier bags. Them two tiny words show me your behavior at that current moment in time. You know, it shows me whether you're senior in management because we subliminally make that decision to say them words. We don't plan it, we just say it. So it's my job to pick up on these behavioral patterns and trends, to exploit you as individuals to try and extract information because, you know, hackers won't go after your external infrastructure if they can just turn up on the site and just break in. You know, they'll sit on, you know, your company for 6 months, 12 months to observe you because if the reward or the payout's long in the period of time, then they'll do that. So let's talk about, you know, how does it happen? So, you know, when I sit down with a company or an organization, I'll have to define my end goal or motivation of what they actually want. Again, I said I can't just go in, you know, I can hack by any means necessary without causing physical damage or distress. So like I said, I can't, you know, hit the fire alarm and I can't make people cry, but I can pretty much do everything else inside the organization. And once I've defined the end goal of what they want to do, so I know some of you know me previously for breaking into a bank dressed as a pizza boy, but that was a similar, you know, defining what they wanted to achieve. Then part of the process will be online reconnaissance. So we always post online. We always do it. You know, when we're at our home or we're at a barbecue or when we're attending a conference or whatever, we post on social media. We want people to see that we're doing well. That's part of a downfall to us, but also a good part as well. So after looking for your online reconnaissance, you know, every time you take a picture, right, so on your phones, yeah, there's certain social media platforms where you can extract what we call EXIF data. So I know where you're stood, you know, within 5 meters of you taking that picture, right? Now, every time you post from when you've had an account for 5 years, I can pick up key trends to where you go just by using a program that we use. Now, it'll show me your favorite coffee shop or when you snap your Starbucks, you know, or when you're traveling on the train or when you're doing this, and it builds up a trend of roughly where you're going to be. But online reconnaissance is also going through like your company files. It's going online looking at any financial records that have been stored, any accounts that have previously been compromised, or in hacks such as LinkedIn, we'll try them password bases with some of your staff members. And then it's also, profiling physical and human targets. So it's me looking at you guys. I'm really, really surprised no one's been hacked at a conference yet. It's unreal. You have many different organizations in one space, and you guys come for the free swag, right? The iPhone chargers, the battery packs, everything that you get. It's so easy to, hack them devices. It's so easy to install malware on them devices. So again, I'm surprised you've not been targeted yet. So after profiling, you guys and watching how you act and your little groups that you associate yourself with, management and different variations, again, I can build this trend and pattern about you. And then, I gather information. So later on, we're going to do some live hack demonstrations. So I'm going to show you all the open cameras in this hotel and around the building. Now, this is legal and ethical because I'm accessing it over port 80, which is in the public domain, and I'm logging in with no credentials. But imagine if I'm near your infrastructure and you have open cameras around your buildings. All I've got to do is turn the camera. I'm not logging in. I can still turn the camera, point it at your organization, and count how many people come inside your building. So if on Wednesday 500 people turn up extra, I'll say, hey, I'm here for the event. Oh, we've had a bit of trouble registering. Oh, no worries. There you go. Here's a free badge, right? Then I'll select my attack vectors, which we'll talk about in the next slide. Then overcome moral or ethical dilemmas. Now, this is kind of a gray area within hacking. A lot of people, when they ask me what my job is, I just say I'm a painter and decorator. It's much easier than saying you're an ethical hacker because they panic and walk away, right? So overcoming the moral or ethical dilemmas would be, is there anyone that's in danger? So when I'm doing my attacks and carrying out live, social engineering methods, I have to do like an ongoing risk assessment all the time. I've tested airport infrastructure, like by getting airside as cabin crew. I've tested banks, financial institutions, pharmaceuticals are crazy. They're more secure than governments. I'll launch my attack. But what you guys need to be aware, I'm launching up to 40 different attacks at any given moment in time. It's not just me on my own. I'll be launching email campaigns, social media campaigns. I'll even buy a domain name that's similar to your company. So let's say if it's google.co.uk, obviously it wouldn't work, but you can get google.net, google.net.org or whatever. And then I'll clone your entire website in seconds, make it look like it's legit, and then put a nice little bonus page on there, sign up for the company bonus scheme, and how many employees will actually click that and fill their data in? Quite a large, substantial amount. So the attack vectors, so diversion theft, we've all heard of the one, in the coffee shop, so this still works to this day. I actually got some guy that paid via card once and told him he forgot his change. So while we're sat there, drinking our coffee or wherever we are, so after following you guys, I'll say, oh, excuse me, sir, you forgot something. Oh, no worries. So what do we do as a society? We slowly close our laptop till it's half closed. Then you can't see the screen, but it's still logged in and still open, and then we'll get up and then leave it. You guys do it on trains all the time when you go into the shop. And, phishing and other campaigns, we're all aware of phishing, yeah? Put your hands up. Okay, we see that all the time, but again, it still works. You can always get that one employee that clicked that link. Now, employees are the weakest link in all infrastructures around the world. You can spend hundreds of millions of pounds on securing your infrastructure, with hardware and equipment, but your employees are the ones that will screw up. They're the ones that are susceptible to these types of attacks. Wireless access points we'll cover later on in the presentation. QR codes. Now, these things are weird, right? So it depends on your marketing director, so whoever it is at the time that says, let's do QR codes. But I was talking at a large event for 2,500 people, and I stuck QR codes all the way around the building next to stands and everything. Now, I wasn't being malicious in that intent. Every time someone scanned it, it had a website that I owned. They did ping that, just ping it, that's all, and let me know who scanned it and what device they was using. And, out of the 2,500 people, 913 people scanned the QR code. Out of that, 345 people had vulnerable devices. I love coming to these events when you guys have business devices of like iPhone 4s. It's ridiculous. Infectious media. So again, dropping USB pens near your house, or you can get them branded with the exact same logo as your company. It's so easy to do. You just go onto eBay and just do it. Dropping USBs, where you frequently visit. Dropping them outside your infrastructure in the car park, and you'll just pick it up. Oh, employee bonuses, confidential. Oh, wicked! I'll just plug that in my machine. I want to see that juicy information. Even though you have a policy that says don't do that, we still do it, right? Because we're curious. Phone spoofing we'll cover later on in the presentation. Exploiting public information. So a demonstration would be, an alliteration would be, there's a company that's actually quite large. I won't tell you where they're based, but they deal with vending machines, okay? Now, this organization said to me, you know, there's no way for you to hack us. We'll give you a challenge. I said, okay, no worries. And what I did was I did some online research. As part of the pension schemes last year, they had to file their assets with Company House, right? But it was just supposed to show their assets. It showed the cost price of the vending machines. It showed who they sold them to and how much they made a profit by selling it to that individual that was filed at Company's House. So when I went back, I'm like, yo, how's Rolls Royce? They're like, what? You know? How's this institution? How do you know that? And again, that was a simple mistake that he did, and they had to get an high court injunction to take that down off Company's House. But that could have led to a massive loss of reputation or damage or even financial loss. And I broke into their warehouse dressed as Royal Mail. And you know, eavesdropping, so listening to your conversations, you know, I really hate silence. It's like a downfall for me. I've got to work in a really noisy environment to focus. But I love listening to what you guys talk about. And I know a few of you are still hungover apparently from last night, but when you guys have had a drink at a conference, you just spill so much information about your company without you even knowing, just subliminally, right? It's like you're here for recruitment, yeah? And all that information could be potentially used against you, you know. I've done it numerous times, listened to people on nights out, talking about their infrastructure, and then put that into my report, because that's my job, to find them disgruntled individuals. Badge surfing. So, you know, I own all sorts of uniforms. If anti-terrorism or counter-terrorism logged into my eBay, they'd be like, what's going on, right? I've got, you know, badges from the NHS. I've got numerous different ones, Royal Mail, FedEx, Pizza Hut, all sorts. I've got Deliveroo, but they screwed up. They sent me the Lycra ones, you know, for the Deliveroo drivers. I was like, I can't walk into a building like that. You know, it's so easy to purchase. So you spend, what, 40p on a lanyard, and then people see it and look like it's believable, but it's key to put on that persona. It's key to be that individual. And a lot of people are trusting, far too trusting for my liking. So here's one. So, you know, the conference organizers said to me, they said, Jamie, we want something insane. We want you to do something that will wow us. So I knew a senior executive from the Luton Hoo Hotel. So I said to him, look, you know, I need a uniform for the day. Can you just sort me out? He says, you know, after a few conversations of what I'm doing, he gave me the uniform for the day, the pants, the top, everything. Now, during that day, you know, I helped everybody at the conference. I was like carrying plates, opening chairs for everyone. You're really horrible to conference staff, by the way. I worked that out. And what was really funny, I got a disciplinary for wearing trainers from a manager, and I don't even work there. So I got a full telling off in front of other staff, you know, for being a new guy dressed with trainers. So, but it was believable. And again, you know, I was learning so much about everybody throughout the day. I was taking pictures of people putting in their PIN numbers, recordings, you know, I was listening to the conversations, and I used everybody there as my entire presentation, blurring their faces out. And each one around the room would drop their faces because they'd know they'd screwed up and done something wrong. But imagine if someone that was there for the wrong reasons, you know, not to show or alliterate that point, how much information could I have got? Well, they were all chief risk officers for senior banks, okay, all of them. And they hate their banks, and they're constantly going on about it, right? You know, I even learned one of them failed an audit, you know, which is ridiculous because, again, if that was in the press, that's damage to reputation. Another one, you know, package for your CEO, so Royal Mail, right? And, you know, I'll just turn up on site and I'll just be like, hey, I'm here to deliver a package or whatever. And if you see me, a lot of your staff, especially reception staff, because we don't train them enough. You know, we say they're there to take calls, they're there to relay messages and check calendar, that's it, right? But these guys are your first defense before you get to your employees. They should be the ones that are aware and understand it. You know, and with the Royal Mail, I'll just turn up and that's it, just plug my way in. After like 5 minutes, I can get into most infrastructures dressed up as FedEx or Royal Mail. Now, I was actually doing a test, and it's unreal, a couple of weeks ago for a large asset management company based in London. So I studied them for a short period of time, and I learned that FedEx would deliver twice a day, one in the morning at a roughly time and one in the afternoon to collect. Now this FedEx guy would turn up and he'd say, I'm here for the company, da-da-da, and I'd listen to what he was saying. So I like to put my earphones in and not listen to music and just wander around and listen to people. And I turned up as FedEx the following day, and this guy said, well, you're not on the list. I said, no, dude, you know, you spoke to me last week. We had the same conversation last week. You know, you're stumping my day. I really need to crack on. Like, can I just go and deliver this package and pick one up and go? Fine, here's a visitor badge. Oh, wonderful, thanks. So I got through the first layer of security, which was reception. Once I got through that, I got into the lift. Now, this is where the really scary and interesting part is. Inside that lift, okay, there was a member from a certain securities agency inside. So he turns around and says, hey, Jamie, are you here to see us today? And I'm like, no, what are you doing here? I had no idea they shared this building. He's like, oh yeah, we're on the 6th, 7th, and 8th floor. And I'm like, well, I'm hacking the 10th floor today. And his face dropped. He's like, how have you got through that layer when this building's supposed to be secure? But then when I got to the floor that I was supposed to be on, you know, to do my pen test, to do my social engineering test, the doors are wide open and they're supposed to be NFC doors that you patch in. There's nobody on reception. I'm wandering around this like an endless chicken. Employees are walking past me. No one cares that I'm there, and I'm just listening and watching what they're doing, right? I even went in the canteen and got a jacket potato and a Coke before I finished, just to prove a point that no one cared the fact that I was there, and put that into my report. But I've seen this numerous times. I've not had numerous jacket potatoes, but that was a one-off, but I've seen this numerous times. This is the most clothed picture of Kim Kardashian I could find, so I apologize for that. But you know, I'm known for hacking Kim Kardashian, so there was 52 million accounts that were vulnerable, right? Now, she's an example of how you should implement a responsible disclosure scheme. So Kanye got an honorary PhD, and I was pretty upset about it, but I'm ethical, so I'm not going to go as far as hacking or do anything like that. So I was reading through comments on her blog, on her website, and I was trying to find something that Kanye quoted so I could just send him a Twitter message saying, hey, you said this, it's bad. And as I was flying down, I noticed some like SQL code that was spewing out onto the comments, and I was like, that should not be there, right? So I did a proof of concept to say, look, if you inject in this point and using these certain parameters, then you will extract this information. And they wrote back and said, we're not interested, it's a lot of lies. So I said, fine. I said, I'm going public in 30 days in the best interest of the public. If you reply and say, we're not fixing it, you can't go public, then I respect that. If you say we'll fix it 6 months, a year down the line, then I respect that. I don't go public, right? So anyway, in 30 days, I went public because they got back to me and said, you know, it's not true, it's fine. So I went public, and then 6 days later, she had a brand new website, a brand new app launched, you know, and the issue had been fixed. But I went public because there was 52 million accounts that were susceptible, okay? Email addresses, first names, last name, house addresses, potential payment information. And that's a large, substantial amount. She has a huge fan base, right? It's the same with Mark Zuckerberg. Now, he has a responsible disclosure scheme. So for those who don't know, you know, you encourage hackers like me, ethical and white hat, to attack your infrastructure, right? So you reward us with hoodies, ironically, when I said don't give the perception of a hacker a hoodie, right? But they do. And, or with, you know, monetary. So I've won quite a few $1,000s from hacking Facebook and finding exploits over my lifetime, well, over from 9 till now. And, you know, what you should do is encourage hackers to attack your infrastructure, to find these vulnerabilities, because they'll come forward and they'll tell you about it, and you can fix it before damage to reputation, loss of revenue. You know, you're encouraging them in a certain scope by saying you can do this, but you can't do this. So again, you should look at that. Now let's talk about routine. What time do you guys wake up at? Feel free to communicate. 6 o'clock? Who wakes up at 6 o'clock? Dude, I don't even think I've seen 6 o'clock before, man. I work 10 till 4. I skip the traffic. So 6 o'clock. So when you wake up, do you have kids, children? Do you have a wife? A wife, okay. How long have you been married?
10 years.
Okay, is it going well? So 10 years, so you've been married for 10 years, right? So you go downstairs, you might give your wife a kiss and have breakfast sometimes. Yeah, do you drive to work? Do you drive the same route to work? No, you go different routes? Why, to beat the traffic?
Avoid boredom.
Oh, sounds good. You're different, I won't talk to you then. But for the majority of us, we drive the same route, right? We arrive at roughly the same time, you know, or tube it or whatever, right? Now, when we get there, we communicate to roughly the same people. It's our group of friends and we have a chat with them, right? But what I'm trying to illustrate is you do the same thing every day, Monday to Friday, right? You do it, yeah? So after 3-4 days of me watching you, I know roughly where you're going to be at a given time. You know, I know roughly what your favorite, you know, do you go to Sainsbury's for a butty during your lunch? Or do you go to Starbucks for a coffee? Or do you work in a certain location for like 20-30 minutes? You know, I learn this about you. Now, us as people, we're subliminally aware, but we're not aware of being subliminal, if that makes sense, right? So we can see everything happening around us, but we block it out and we do what we need to do in the easiest way. Not the most efficient way, but the easiest way for us, right? Now, just be careful and be aware of your surroundings. Be careful, you know, if someone's watching you or observing you. Again, it does occur. I have a USB with me today that I can put into your machine. After 3 seconds of that being in your machine, I can pull all your passwords, your VPN credentials, even your browsing history, which is always interesting sometimes, right? And, you know, from there, so just be careful and just be aware. And when you're not using your laptop, just make sure you log out, please. Now, the safest method of communication nowadays is a carrier pigeon. I like to put this in for a bit of fun, unless you're a very good shot like Luke over there. But again, if we see how we transmit data, okay, so we send it via email as an example, right? And we have 10 hops, 15 hops, 20 hops. Before we actually reach our destination, we're going through servers, we're going through data centers, all sorts, right? From point A to point B. Now there's so much ways that potential data could be intercepted. So the reason why I put this in there is Wi-Fi. How many people have connected to the Wi-Fi here today? Put your hands up. Okay, now how many people have logged in with their real email addresses and put their real email and their first and last name on that? Put your hands up. Okay, quite a few people. Now we give away this information, we're not aware of what could happen. Now on these Wi-Fi networks, a lot of them are what we not call VLANs. They're not isolated. So you can see exactly what you guys are doing, exactly what information you're transmitting by a hacker connecting to it. Now hotels are insane. You can see hundreds of people on that subnet and what they're browsing. So if you're connected to a public Wi-Fi, make sure you're using a VPN because there's always somebody watching, I guarantee it, okay? Who's got a smart house, IoT devices inside their house? Who knows what IoT is? Who knows what it's not? Okay, so IoT is the Internet of Things. It's devices like Alexa, or OK Google, or any other device that might help you be more efficient inside of your home. Now, did you know you can buy a smart bed that will show you if your partner's cheating on you when you're away at a conference? Legit, right? It's a pointless IoT device, but it goes down well with the financial guys. It weighs yourself and weighs your partner inside the bed, and you get a text, and it even says put your children in and take them out to weigh the weight as well. It's ridiculous. But again, that's pointless information. So we might see that, well, yeah, it weighs your weight, that's it. But it could be monitoring your sleep patterns, monitoring your weight. There's so much analytical data that could be behind that, except for what it's actually built for purpose. So with IoT, a lot of them aren't regulated. A lot of them don't have any compliance around it. I mean, look at FOSCAM. 900,000 baby monitors are susceptible to attack via FOSCAM, right? Now, all the credentials are exactly the same for every single device. And hackers have built a script to find them on Google and to see them on Google and then connect to them and see babies sleeping, then extort money from the parents or talk through that. So just be careful when using IoT devices because, as an example, we've got, my name is Kayla. Who's got children in here? Put your hands up. Who's got young children? Okay, have any of you ever bought these devices? So like Kayla the doll? You? Put your hand up slowly, it's fine. So something as simple as this, I have the doll, but it's kind of baroque now. I've used it that many times at conferences. And this simple device here, right? So it talks to you, it starts spewing, information and saying hello and making weird noises, right? You can ask it questions and it kind of replies to a certain extent. It's very limited on how it's programmed, but it uses an API that calls from Wikipedia, okay? Now with this device, I can connect to this, or hackers can connect to this inside your house. They can listen to your conversations of what you're talking about inside your house, right? Some of them have little cameras in, that you can take pictures with and, it has a little silly app and stuff that you can use. Now, hackers can compromise them devices. There's no Bluetooth pin on that device. There's nothing at all that restricts it, no security. And when we reached out to them, do you know what they did? They uploaded that to their website. Remember to turn IQ off when he's not being played with. This will preserve his batteries. No, it won't preserve his batteries. It'll stop people listening in to your conversations. So just be aware with devices like this. Be very, very aware. There's always something or someone listening. So just be careful. This is what I like to call the fork bomb or the fork problem. Who's heard of a fork bomb in here? Put your hands up. Nobody. Cool. Well, this 11 characters bit of code here can be transcribed in pretty much any programming language that there is, right? Perl, Ruby, anything, Java. Now what this does is it'll bring down your infrastructure in seconds. 10, 15 seconds, it'll topple it, one by one like dominoes, your systems will start to go down. Now the reason why I put this in here is for you guys not to have time off work, but to show you, the fact that this should have been patched, but 3 out of 10 companies are still susceptible to this. And the reason why I find is because IT departments say it's my way or the highway. That's what they say, right? They haven't evolved with cybersecurity. Back then an IT guy did cybersecurity, he did the email systems, he did database systems, architect, he did everything under one job title. But now we have, the cybersecurity individuals that, that have sat through the certifications, through their exams. We have the database engineers that know the database flows inside and out. But a lot of companies still have the legacy IT guy. So just be careful and make sure, again, your IT guy is trained, because, again, 11 characters can topple it down. So the way that this works is when you run that code, it starts off as 1, then it goes to 3, then it goes to 6, 9, and it replicates continuously. And then eventually all your server resources, your potential server could overheat, could do a lot of damage and data loss, and it'll replicate across your network until you reboot absolutely everything to get rid of it. So let's do some data center hacking. All legal and ethical, might add that. So do you want to talk amongst yourselves while I play with my laptop? I hate silence. It's a downfall for society. Keep talking. And don't say it's scary, I can hear you. So if we go to Google, okay. So with some examples, I'm just going to show you how susceptible Google is, right? So you can go inside Google and just type in specific key strings. So this will show you loads of open voicemail accounts that you can listen into people's voicemails. You can even narrow it down to location because Google Chrome, I'm using Safari today because I enjoy it, but Google Chrome geolocates everything that you do. When you type in barbershop, it finds you a barbershop across the street. It doesn't give you one in Manhattan or New York. Now the beauty of us typing these key strings in, it'll narrow it down to your location. But I'm on a VPN today like I pitch, and no offense to George Mason University. But as we can see, there's different things. So this one here, I'm not going to open these voicemails because I'd breach data protection and you guys had listened to it and it's not fair. But you can access it via port 80 on Google. Another one, if we browse Google, look at this. There's loads of, open printers. Now, a lot of people think, well, yeah, they're just printers, but there's a lot of rubbish. You can't do anything with it, right? Do you agree? It's just a printer, yeah? Yes. Now, what you can do with this, I can create an FTP account inside here. I can put my email address inside here, right? It'd be unethical, I wouldn't do that. But every time they scan a document or a confidential file, it'll email it straight to me without them even knowing about it. Now, a lot of university networks and institutional networks have default credentials for the printers. Admin, admin password, Epson, whatever it is, right? Now, it clearly says this is a HP LaserJet P2055DN. Great. What is the default credential for a HP LaserJet P2055DN? And Google will come back with admin. And it's admin, okay? Now, the hundreds of thousands of printers just sat there. That's hundreds of thousands of potential confidential documents that hackers are sending. I've been in infrastructures before and helped them recover from an attack and seen hundreds of emails sat inside their printers where their documents have been going all the way around. So again, something so tiny as like a printer can have a massive implication on your network or day-to-day basis. So again, you need to be careful of that. Excuse me, got a bad cough. Another one, URL, view.shtml, right? Oh, if I can spell, my bad. There we go. Open CCTV cameras. So my VPN's in Salisbury at the moment. I like to spice things up. So as we can see, when it decides to load, we can control that camera. There's even like a business around here that's actually running. I think this one's the business. Let's just find. Now, the danger of this is, let's just find the one. Wait for it to load. But when it loads this business, right, I've reached out to these numerous times and I've told them about it. Look at that. So these guys are live. They have a PDQ card machine to the left of this camera, right, that I'll show you right now. So I'm not logging in. I'm not using any credentials, though I'm not breaking the law. This is port 80. Anybody can see it. Look, I'm controlling it. Over there's the card machine. You can zoom in and watch people typing in cards. Now, how many hackers can just sit behind here all day long and just be like, oh yeah, just look every time you scan it? You could build a bot that just monitors this page and looks for the information and fills it into a database, automatic, without taking the human time up. Now, we can even see this guy over here picking his nose. We can zoom in. Or tilt down, tilt up, Again, this is inside of an organization. So just be careful of what you're actually, publicly facing. A lot of organizations are susceptible to it. I'm not going to do the data center. Right, I need a volunteer. Feel free to not put your hands up. No, I genuinely need a volunteer. Can I have 2 volunteers, please? Come on, don't spoil it. I'm not going to hack into your stuff. I'm going to get consent from you, and it's not hacking what I'm about to do. And I'll explain it to you privately. So 2 volunteers. Sir, somebody else, please. Sir, do you want to come up? Come up to the stage. See what it's like. Okay. Can you mute my mic a second while I talk to these individuals? I don't want to... Okay, you can sit down. Thank you. Okay, and you know, you can even text HR and have time off work from your boss, but don't do that. It's unethical. But as you was aware, right, so what I did was I called his phone from him without touching his device. How many people who give out business cards here today and share them with other people? You are really not a sharing bunch, right? You're like, I've got to be here. It's part of my package for training. You know, but that's very dangerous because if you have multiple sites, you know, or it's not very dangerous, you should give it out. You know, it's marketing. We do it all the time. But you need to be aware that if you have multiple sites, I can call from one site to another site, yeah, and make it look like an internal call. So when you see it, you know, you can answer it and you'll give me information. Now, that is a free app on the App Store. It's not hacking. It's a free app on the App Store. Now, how dangerous is that? You know, it's on an iOS App Store and it's on Android App Store. And anyone can download it this second and make these prank calls. But I can call the gentleman from his own phone and it'll say, welcome to your voicemail. You have 6 new messages. Now, how many people in here have a voicemail pin? 4 people, academics, for research. Can't tell if you were swearing then or if you... It's all good. So yeah, again, just be aware and make a voicemail pin. You know, it's so easy to get your secrets from voicemails, any sales deals that you've been working on, any research you've been doing. And again, you would not be the wiser that this has occurred. It doesn't leave a trace. You know, so be aware of that. Be aware of what could happen. I'm going to skip the gaming company life hack, but a pineapple. So who's heard of a pineapple before? Not the one that you eat, the electrical one. Nobody. So this pineapple here is £110 to buy. You can buy it from Ireland. They don't do it in the UK yet, but you can buy it from Ireland, right? Now this pineapple is illegal how it's used, but legal to purchase, which is a bit weird, really. And with this device, one by one in the audience, you guys will connect to it on your phones and on your laptops, right? Just one by one. Even if you're connected to a wireless access point, such as the hotel, you can force connections off that and force to your strong signal. So in the audience, your names of devices will start to appear on stage. I'm not going to do that because it's unethical. Now, what you do is do a man-in-the-middle based attack with this device. So you can see stuff that you're sending. You can sometimes see ICS records for your calendar to see where you're being, you know, to see where you've been or where you're going. Now, just be very aware again, when you're not using wireless, disable it off your device. Okay, just turn the button off and make sure your wireless is disabled. Now, the way that this works, you ask, is, you know, from the moment that your phone has been kind of manufactured, every wireless network you've connected to is stored on this device. So, you know, I'm talking Starbucks, you know, McDonald's, even the hotel today. And, you know, it's always looking for them networks because when we go home, it automatically connects. So when we go to the office, it automatically connects. So just be aware of that. Not many people forget networks on devices. It's not very easy to see and click forget network. You just leave it and just move on to your next place of we're using Wi-Fi. So always make sure you're using a VPN. It's really, really important. This is a Windows firewall. No offense to Microsoft. But the reason why I put this in here is because you guys spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on this iron gate, right? But you forget your employees, the hedges, no offense, they're not hedges, but it's my metaphor, right? And you forget these, so you need to focus more on, moving your budgets around to your employees, moving internal, systems to make sure that they're trained and aware. Like I said, they are the first line of defense and your last line of defense. Just like your infrastructure, they're key and important. So be aware of that. Who in here has got children again? Put your hands up. Okay. Now, who in here has give them an iPad or a tablet? Who in here has set the pin to 1234 or 1111, for the devices? You're smiling because you know I'm right, dude. And we do, but we teach them about stranger danger. We teach them not to talk to the stranger in public or not to do these things, but we don't teach them in a virtual environment. We never have that conversation with them properly to say, look, this world is a whole different place. Who you're talking to might not be John. It might be somebody else. When you're downloading things, it might not be what you're downloading. So again, we don't educate them, and especially when it comes to ransomware. So I'm the cyber safety advisor for the Cyber Smile Foundation, and we help about 56,000 kids a month. And I sit on a board with people from Facebook, Twitter, so heads, high-up executives, and we look at and do research around cyberbullying and see how we can assist and help. Now, over the last 2 years, we've seen a massive increase in teen suicides relating to ransomware. And this individual, committed suicide over something silly like ransomware. Now, how many people in here have talked to their kids about ransomware or told them about ransomware? 2 people, 3 people out of the whole organization put their hands up, for having kids. Now, what this individual was doing, he was playing Minecraft, and a lot of people were bullying him in game, going in and beating his world up, and he spent lots of time trying to build it. So he downloaded a tool online that said he could build magnificent infrastructures, in seconds. So he downloaded this tool and installed it, and for 5 minutes it worked. He did exactly what it said it would do. But then 5 minutes later, it infected his machine with ransomware, right? It took a picture of his face and embedded it into a website, again, similar to this. But it said he'd been looking at child pornography. So how many teenagers, after seeing that through ransomware, would go to their parents or teacher to actually say, my computer's saying I've been looking at child pornography, what should I do? And how many teachers or individuals would know what ransomware is? Not a lot of people, unless you're working in the field of being a corporate guy. So again, teach your kids it's not just corporate security. When you implement cybersecurity in your home life, it becomes second nature at work. When you're using your card, don't be like, oh, it's cool, I'll just put it in the cash point and do. A lot of people do that. Hide your card, Take cybersecurity seriously. So I'm Jamie Woodruff, and I don't know why this slide's here, but it should be. I'm the CTO of Metrics Cloud. I'm the cyber safety advisor for the Cyber Smile Foundation. My Twitter is Jamie_geek, so feel free to tweet me. And our company is @Metrics Cloud. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think you've made quite a number of people very nervous. We probably just have time for 1 or 2 questions, if people have.
Feel free.
Hi there, Jamie. James Farnhill, University of Warwick. I very much empathise with what you're saying about kids actually learning the wrong lessons. Sorry, I'm over here.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Bit of social engineering on my part, so well out of sight line. I wonder what you thought the answer to that was, because my kids go to school and immediately they get told, give us your passwords.
Right.
Because if you don't have your passwords, if you forget your password, then it's a real pain. I go back to my wife and say, their passwords are their passwords, and if they forget them, we'll reset them, they get a new password. But the general culture seems to be, from primary school onwards, okay, so that it's convenient, we'll have things like sharing passwords. If I want to have a look at, if I want to find their athletics password, it's a piece of cake, because basically it's in numerous locations. So how do you think, once we actually get those kids through into university, You know, they've spent probably an entire lifetime of really bad cyber security practice. How do we address that? And what kind of practical things can we do?
I mean, I get your point wholly of what you were saying about schools. So a really good friend of mine, Graham Martin Brown, he's an author of a book called Learning Reimagined, and you should definitely read that book. And in the book, you know, he was saying the same thing as exactly what you've relayed now in much more depth. But it shows that school systems are underfunded, you know, completely underfunded, and we have a curriculum that we have to follow, right? That's it. You don't encourage people to think independently or go towards a subject that they enjoy. And I think with cybersecurity, it's the same thing. It has to evolve in time and, you know, from individuals, because when I was growing up, you know, it was always about online gaming at school. You know, we had our little, you know, it's only recently, over the last 15 to 20 years, it's kind of been like that. So again, as we kind of evolve and as they evolve into university, I think the more that we educate people in public as a society, so a lot of financial institutions now are running campaigns to show elderly, but also show people how important cybersecurity is. So I think as we're seeing that, you know, evolving, then definitely when they come to university or when they come to that certain institutional level, they should have some awareness or concept of it. But I think equally us as well, I'm not a parent, but as parents with their children, if they're not in some corporate sector or they're self-employed and they don't really take cybersecurity seriously or really understand it, then it's much difficult for them to educate their kids. So I think being more open about cybersecurity and showing it everywhere, not just with financial institutions and not just in certain areas, then it would help, you know, especially because I say cybersecurity is a part of evolution. It's, you know, it's so important. It's not just a job that's come in for 5 years and then it's going to go redundant and that's it, it's all. You know, cybersecurity is going to be forever and it's going to evolve. So we need to adapt and evolve with that. So.
Okay,
Thank you.
And then we've got any more questions?
We're out of time for...
Oh.
We've one question from Mary.
Okay, I'll do a quick one.
Very quickly.
Okay.
Hello, Jamie. You don't have to name any names, but have you successfully hacked into any universities?
Yes.
Many?
Over 10. We're working with institutions, not against them.
And the main
Students.
holes... Right.
International students. Let's just leave it at that. You know, it's old infrastructure as well. A lot of institutions have really old infrastructure. I think my university had coax wires running for internet, you know, all the way around and still using them on legacy systems. No offense.
Maybe a few people actually maybe contacting Jamie after the...
Yeah, I'll be around, so thank you. And apologies for yesterday as well. They changed the day and vice versa, but I'm here, so I'm going to take my robot to the back of the room and leave some listening devices around.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Our closing speaker for the conference